to Paris Paranormal. You know, we've said so many times that we do local stories of legends and more. Well, tonight we're going to be doing a little bit more. I'm Terry Keel.
And I'm April Wilson.
Yes, she is.
And this is the place you can ask questions, get answers, and find out what's been going on when you hear those bumps in the night that scare you.
You know, we're glad you're here and that you've joined us. We have a fun-filled night planned for you because tonight we have Christopher Jordan. That's right. And we're going to read his bio and then welcome him in.
So, Christopher Jordan composes instrumental music incorporating everything from frequencies from within the solar system to binaural beats and even brainwave frequencies. His soothing and calming music is designed to help listeners relax. Christopher's unique compositions have been made as background music for meditation albums, corporate events, as well as a unique series of meditation videos. Christopher is the host of The Curious Realm, a podcast that explores interesting and unusual topics related to science, technology, history, and culture. He also hosts the Talking Sound podcast, providing coverage of the best of analog and digital technologies in the field of audio and video production, as well as application of these technologies in the field and the studio. Christopher is also the founder and head of the HC Universal Network, a network providing distribution for podcasts of varying genres. He's the owner of HC Productions in Austin, Texas, providing audio and video technicians for corporate events, as well as audio and video editing and custom content creation. So welcome, Christopher.
Yes, and you know, he's also got an interesting story to tell us tonight. So you've had a lot of unique things happen to you, and we're so excited to hear about all of them and have you share with our listeners tonight. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Terry and April.
Thank you.
So tell us about what Curious Realm, first of all, is all about.
Curious Realm is basically a conversation on humanity and a lot of the topics that people are just now kind of getting comfortable with, but still a lot of topics that people don't want to talk about.
Right.
We regularly have people on talking about human trafficking, things like that, other social issues happening. But at the same token, we talk a lot about the paranormal, UFOs, UAPs, government disclosures, different government programs that have been declassified over the years, things like that. Really, it's the fact of if we don't have these mutual conversations with an open heart and an open mind, what are we doing to advance humanity, and what are we doing to get somewhere else?
Right.
You know, right now we're at a precipice. And beyond a boiling point, we are at a roiling point as a humanity. Mm-hmm. And to find a point of empathy, to find a point of common ground with anybody can be hard, much less to talk about a paranormal experience, to talk about having any kind of experience that many people may not understand or be open to.
Right.
So yeah, it's a big conversation about who we are and where we are as a humanity.
Well, very good. Well,
Yeah.
now, do you have any questions for him before we get going?
Oh my goodness.
Ton, right?
Where do we start? Because I was listening to binaural beats and music a long time ago. For meditation, for sound healing, frequency.
Yeah.
And I studied the Solfago chart. I just kept going down rabbit holes. And it was just amazing to me how, well, it's like Tesla said, once you understand the universe in the terms of energy, vibration, and frequency, you know all the secrets.
Well,
Most
yeah,
of them,
yeah.
anyway.
And,
Yeah.
and it's really interesting because if you start looking at a lot of the modern efforts of science, one of the things I bring up on my show regularly is the fact of ninth grade science. We all learned that we are 90% empty space.
Yes.
Like, and when you think about that, when you stop and you think about that,
I
like
mean-
right now, by everything we learned in that ninth grade science class, you and I are sharing an electron shell right now.
Yes.
Right.
By
Yes.
a distance, our electrons are brushing up against each other
Yes.
this far away.
Yes.
You know, and that's phenomenal to think about when you stop and think about everything is vibration.
Oh, it
Yeah.
sure is.
It really does connect us to the world around us in a totally different way,
Yeah.
and explain a lot of things that are out there, like the weird tickle you get behind your belly button when you walk into a room, you know, and just go, I don't know if I need
Yes.
to be here tonight.
Yes.
I should
That
probably
gut
leave.
feeling. Yeah.
You should always pay attention to that.
Oh boy. You're
Yeah,
not kidding.
yeah, precisely. And that I don't know. I spent many years in the realm of full-on Christianity. My first year in college, I was a seminarian for the Catholic Church. I was a youth minister for many, many years. Taught religion, CCE, adult RCIA, all kinds of things. And it can be hard sometimes to see these things for what they are, and to when you understand that there is a point of science to some of this,
Yes,
it
definitely.
really does put it in a different light, and into a different point of acceptance, you know, of the fact of it's just another part of the realm in which we live.
Right.
Yes.
Absolutely. You had a question.
Well, you know, I was just kind of bringing it down here to, you know, like English terms here for people that's never really heard about this, but I was like, how frequencies affect our body.
Yes.
You know, like,
Yeah.
you know, when you've walked in a room and you feel that weird energy.
Right. You got your little feelers out. It's like,
Yeah.
I mean, you feel, and how it affects our bodies.
right.
Yeah. Well, and you know, a prime example is even if you look at the electromagnetic chart. This is something that I show regularly on my show. That little slice right here that you see that says visible light.
Yeah.
Right.
We got everything all around it, and if you notice, there's a couple things that that science would straight tell you stay away from.
right.
Yeah. We're only supposed to.
Gamma rays is how we ended up with the Incredible Hulk. You know,
Exactly.
so it's like all of those things are there.
Yeah.
And even whenever I've gone onto people's properties, for a prime example would be whenever I've gone to targeted individuals' properties. Targeted individuals are folks who think that, or believe rather, that they have been targeted by specialized weaponry, radio wave weaponry, microwaves, things like that. Symptoms akin to Havana syndrome, that kind of stuff. And frequently, like, I'll bring my radio scanning equipment, all kinds of things, and we'll get there. But the first thing I bring out is things like a radiation detector,
right.
you know, and a gas leak detector. And
Yes.
I start eliminating
Protection.
An EMF.
the things that could be commonly causing something like that.
Yes.
Right.
You know, let's make sure that you don't have a micro gas leak in your house somewhere, that you maybe aren't
Yes.
sitting on top of a radon pocket,
Right.
or that you don't have some gamma wave radiation coming up from a fault line under your house.
Right. Exactly.
Something like that, that may explain the affects that it's having on your body and on your mind.
It can cause you to have headaches.
Sure.
It can have hallucinate.
Absolutely.
There's a lot of
Absolutely,
negative
like-
effects.
I mean, prime example, I was just asked the other day while I was helping mix cameras what these glasses are for. These are my migraine filters. They
Oh.
filter out very specific wavelengths of light
Yeah.
to help me not have migraines as much.
I
I
wear
don't
an
really wear
EMF
them on
protector.
camera.
Yeah,
because
is it working? Is it working?
Oh, they're fantastic.
Oh, wow.
They're fantastic. But those are wavelengths of light that we cannot see. Now there are animals that do see in it. You know, and we have amazing ranges of technology that see inside of them.
Right.
For infrared, we use thermal vision, things like that. You know, we have ultraviolet filters, all kinds of things. So we can see these frequencies. Here's another great example right here.
And you can definitely feel them if you can't see them.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
And like, here's a prime example. I just recently went to Proctor's Ledge. This is Proctor's Ledge, where the actual hangings in Salem, Massachusetts happen.
Oh, wow.
Oh, wow.
All those little plaques that you see on the wall is one plaque for each person that was hung during the Salem witch trials.
A lot of energy
Now-
there.
Now, here is a picture taken with the exact same camera with the filters removed. So this camera has been modified for full spectrum. Now you can see the infrared and ultraviolet in the image as well.
Right.
And exact same image. Oh, sorry about that. Exact same image. One of them you're able to see into the spectrum just outside of our vision on both sides. I have that camera modified for astral photography, things like that. But I also use it for paranormal work because, yes, it sees into the infrared, into the ultraviolet, things like that. And that's just it. Our perception of things is very, very slim and very limited
Oh,
as
yes.
humans. And in that range of visible light is also a range of hearing.
Yes.
Yes,
Like that,
too.
that includes the audio spectrum as
It
well.
does.
that we
Yeah.
can see
Definitely
in
does. Yeah.
here. So, and it once you start understanding that, then yes, you get into the fact of colors have a frequency.
You
Yes.
know,
Colors have a sound.
Everything has a frequency.
yes,
Yeah.
and you mentioned the sound. Just the other day, Kevin and I were upstairs. He was in one room, and they're both connected. It's an open concept room. And I was sitting on my bed on the computer, and all of a sudden there was a huge crash of glass. A huge crash of glass. And we thought a window had either exploded or maybe a bird flew into it or something had happened. Nothing had happened like that. There was no glass in the room between us that was broken. And we still are wondering what happened there when both of us heard this horrific crashing of glass and no glass crashed. So yes, these waves are so bizarre, and I'm not really sure what that's all about. I don't really know what it's trying to bring into our understanding, our attention, get us involved in. But it's just so interesting. But you were talking about different experiences. Tell us, I know that you've had a couple experiences. Share with us those if you would, Chris.
I've had a few different experiences in my life. One of them was actively in the seminary that I was at in Dallas, where we had a huge rotunda, just a big circle that went around the common area inside the building where the chapel was and everything else. Outside were offices and the library. Things like that. I would frequently, whenever I couldn't sleep at night, go just walk the rotunda. Just walk around, think. And I was walking one evening and started hearing footsteps behind me. That never resulted in anything, whichever way I walked. It was really strange, but yeah. They were following me down the hall when nobody else was in the hall. It
was like
really
disembodied,
wild.
totally disembodied.
Yeah, and I mean that's one of those situations. I've
Strange.
done my fair share of paranormal work as well. And
It could have been residual.
taken statements from folks. That's one that even I go like, well, there could be 28 explanations of that.
Yeah.
But it was a strange experience for me at the time, most definitely.
She just mentioned it could have been residual.
Yeah.
Had anything happened in
Yeah.
that rotunda that it could have been something residual?
Could be the fact of, the seminary is a beautiful point in life for just about anybody. It can also be a pretty traumatic point in life
Oh, yeah.
for a lot of people, because there's a lot of internal spiritual warfare that goes on there.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
So,
Big
Gotcha.
time.
yeah.
And
Your
that's
high
definitely a
frequencies and
very
low.
strange vibration. Powerful vibrations,
Well, and that's just it. Beyond that, I guess the next huge one that I had was I was out at a cemetery with a bunch of friends, and we were just like playing guitar, things like that. And as we got up to leave, one of my friends actively had a hand grab him. No person there,
Right.
but a hand grabbed
Wow.
his ankle
Oh.
while we were getting ready to leave, and that was a pretty wild experience, to say the least, and one that we still talk about to this day, because we'd go there regularly and
Do you
play
know
guitar, things like that.
Do you know if he ever figured out who was trying to grab him?
No, we've always said Blanco, because that's what the tombstone said that we would go meet at.
Oh, okay.
We'd go meet at Blanco's place to play guitar. And
Blanca's
that
place.
was
Maybe
that-
Blanco was
yeah.
giving y'all like a high five.
Yeah.
Don't go.
It was awfully strange. Now, one of the weirder ones that I had personally, like, this was really strange. I was speaking at a podcasting conference in San Antonio about 3-4 years ago, and a good friend of mine, Jerry McClelland, was getting ready to launch a paranormal show, and knew that I had talked with experiencers and things like that, and knew that I'd had a couple of experiences, and was like, hey, you want to come do a test record for the show? So we went. He was staying at the Menger Hotel in San Antonio, one of the most haunted hotels in America.
Wow.
And he was hoping for an experience. He was like, I had to stay here. The conference was right down the road. So we go upstairs after the conference. We get the room set for the interview, everything else. Hop down to the bar, have 2-3 drinks, come back up, and in the middle of the bed, there is a single drop of blood.
Oh.
Was not there when we were setting up the room. I was in the room with him. The whole time, I left the room with him. Strange stuff. Took the sheet off the bed.
Did
all
y'all
that kind of
look
stuff.
up?
We did our interview.
Yeah.
Had a great time. Chatted for about an hour and a half. Had another drink while we did that. And as we stopped, the bathroom door handle turned and the door opened.
Oh my goodness.
And
Okay,
nobody was
that's
there.
a completely different realm. Now you're talking power coming from something.
It was like,
You know?
Hey, how you doing, guy? Or gal, whichever you are.
But
Yeah.
the
We're cool.
blood,
Oh, you're cool.
Yeah.
that's a completely
yeah.
different thing. That's not a spiritual
It was-
implication.
It
That's
was
something
strange.
more.
It was strange.
Right.
And
Spirits
as I
don't
left,
bleed.
as I left, I went downstairs, and there was an older security guard, and I had to ask him. It was like 1-2 in the morning. I ended up sitting there, listening to stories from this security guard for about 3 hours
Oh, wow.
about that hallway.
Oh, I bet.
And about the spirits that had been seen in that hallway, and the knocks on the windows outside the 5th floor.
Had you ever seen any blood?
Things like that. That's what I asked him. He was like, "Oh wow, that's a new one." I was like, I don't know what that was about, but the door opening was creepy enough, man. So
Oh,
yeah,
wow.
that was a pretty visceral, real experience where we were both just kind of awestruck when it happened. Like, wow, because it was closed. Like the door handle moved. It was a 1920s door. You know, you're
Yeah.
not here. It's been painted over 3 times with lead paint. You
Was
know,
it-
they had
was
that
it
specific
creaky?
creak to it. Oh yeah, no, like creaking as the door handle
Yeah.
turned. You know, like that
Ooh.
unoiled squeak.
That made it even more spooky.
Yeah. Well, you can
Creak.
never sneak in at grandma's house.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh boy. Yeah. There you go.
Oh my goodness.
Probably the most frightening experience I ever had though was shadow people. And I had a few experiences at my mother's old house where I saw shadow people in the house.
Okay. What area of
but-
the house?
One was behind me in the mirror in the
Oh.
bathroom.
Ooh.
That's very freaky.
Did
Another
it-
was outside my door of my bedroom. Go ahead, April.
Did it linger or was it fast?
Oh no, it lingered.
Good question. Wow.
Yeah,
did.
it was there.
So you got a real good
And
visual.
solid.
on
It was there.
Yeah.
And solid.
The third time that it happened was the first time that I ever experienced night terrors.
Oh yes. That
Where
would
I
help.
was
That
where
would
I was
cause it.
unable to move and unable to respond. And at that point, the shadow person was actually grabbing me
Oh my gosh.
Oh.
and
Wow.
pulling me, trying to pull me from my bed. I can
Oh.
only imagine. But yeah, that was
that takes
probably
a
the most
certain-
frightening paranormal experience of my life, and that was one that that I took even after the seminary. I had spiritual direction for years. I always maintained a spiritual director that I could go to and just talk about things unabashedly, and I brought that to him. I was like, I've had a really strange experience, and I've had a few strange experiences. Like even going into the seminary was because I had a moment of ecstatic bliss where I was in what I believe to be the true presence of what I know to be God.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I have been there a few times in my life where it is a truly divine moment, and I am transported to somewhere totally different.
Oh, there's nothing like bliss. I can remember just a few. I remember certain times through my life, and you can't explain it, but it is
Yeah.
ultimate bliss.
Well, and
well,
I was
the
always
presence of God.
absolutely, and I was always thankful that as a junior in high school, when I brought that after serving at the altar one Sunday to Father John Upton, if you're out there, I love you, man. I'll always love you. Because I know a lot of priests that if I'd have brought that experience to them, we'd have probably had a different conversation.
Right. Right.
But when I brought that to him, he was like, wow, that is a beautiful moment, Chris. You should really explore that and explore what that means to you. You know, and if you feel like you should serve, you should explore that inside of you. But when this situation happened with the shadow person, I brought that to my spiritual director at the time, who I'd known since he was a seminarian, since before he got ordained. And he was like, Chris, I don't really know what to tell you. The church doesn't really have a teaching on that. Because the church doesn't have opinions. The church doesn't think things. The church teaches. And if it's not in that big green book called the Catechism, then,
Yeah.
well, you know, maybe a shady gray area somewhere. But he was like, we don't really have a teaching on that. And I was like, okay, well, I have a big crisis of conscience here then, Padre. Because you're asking me to accept upon spectral evidence my faith. But when presented evidence of the spectral from a
Yes.
faithful person,
Good point.
you have no answer.
Good point, Chris.
So,
Right.
it was that point that I kind of stepped away from some of my church and things like that. Not going to lie, where the institution of things just kind of disappointed me.
You know,
And granted, the church has changed a lot of ways in the last, just since 2012, they actively reopened the School of Exorcism.
right.
Yeah.
But you know, it's so interesting because back in that day when I lived in Buffalo, New York, I had an entity that appeared to me in an apartment, and it frightened me so bad I got on a bus and went right to the Catholic Church, and I begged the nuns to let me talk to somebody. And they actually showed me the door and asked me to leave because they said, we don't do this kind of thing. And I said, but you do other things. You know, God is a spirit, and I'm seeing spirits, and I'm confused. I need help. I'm scared. And I truly was beyond scared. And I was hoping that I could get some help. So that's also why I stepped away and started looking at that.
Well, you can't pick up one end of the stick without picking up the other end.
That's it. That's it. Exactly.
When you pick up one end, the other end's there.
Yeah.
Yeah. And sometimes it ain't too
so
clean.
below.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, certainly, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that is what, that moment in my life really did cause a pivot. Much like any experiencer, the phrase I heard that I love is ontological shock. The idea that everything that you know and believe has been rocked, has been changed,
in
a quantifiable way to you. The unquantifiable has been changed.
And that happens every time that you have these experiences, which
Absolutely.
after a while add up, and you know, all the vibrations change. Everything changes about what you see and how you see it, what you understand, and how you feel. And you know, the feel is that very powerful place. Like you were saying, and I've said so many times, everything is a vibration. So you don't know where that was coming from. If you can't talk to somebody who knows where that came from or understands it, you know, then what do you do with that? And this is why we're doing what we're doing. April and I are out here talking about this because so many people have had these experiences.
Well, it's just like when somebody, just take for example, where's my BFF over here? Bigfoot.
Oh, yeah.
Bigfoot.
Yeah. It's like when most people, when they see Bigfoot or any kind of cryptid, it changes the way they see everything in life. It completely changes their whole perception of everything.
Yep. And, you know, I recently sat on a panel at the Texas Dogman Encrypted Conference. And one of the questions...
You're so lucky.
One of the questions that happened was about the connection of Bigfoot, Dogman, the paranormal, things like that. And in the community, it's called woo.
Yeah.
Air quotes.
Yes.
For those that are just listeners.
Yeah.
It's called woo. You know, there's the scientific endeavor, but then there's also there's ties with Bigfoot, portals, all kinds of paranormal events.
Right.
And I have posited the fact of, I firmly believe that there is a cryptid hominid species in North America and beyond.
Yes.
That we know as Bigfoot, Yeti, Yowie, hairy man, all kinds of things.
Woolly boogers, bully hoggers, wood knockers.
However, I believe that there is also a realm of something else, whether it be alien, spiritual, what have you, that is using the trope of our mind to express themselves physically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know for a fact
because if we
it
saw their
exists.
natural form or whatever it is, it would cause that ontological shock.
Right.
But they can understand that, oh, well, if I put myself in the form of a Bigfoot, they'd be comfortable with that.
Right.
Yeah.
They would be accepting of that. And that's just a hypothesis. That's just me going out there. But that's kind of the whole idea, is that without hypothesis, we have no way to experiment.
Right.
Well,
and without the experimentation, we can't get to theory.
And you just have to be open-minded.
Yeah.
I mean, you have so many people, they have these strong values and they want everybody to believe the way they believe. That is great. But
Yeah. Doesn't work that
everybody
way.
has a different way of looking at
Yeah.
it. And you
Right.
have to just be open-minded and just be open to how it all does happen and why and who sees and doesn't see and just...
Well,
Right. And you know, I have to say right here, I've got to interject this.
Please.
I know for a fact that Bigfoot does exist. I have seen him.
Because she's seen
and,
him.
Wow.
And if had I not seen him, and I will say before I saw him, I had serious doubts that it was a real thing. But he is alive and well on planet Earth, and I have seen him. And, you know, it's just crazy how it does take that experiencing it
Yeah.
to know.
Yeah.
Like with like what you saw, Chris, with the footsteps behind you, disembodied footsteps.
Yeah.
You know, okay, you now know something happened. You can't deny that, and you can't deny that you saw something in the mirror. It happened
Yeah.
to you. It was a part of your life. It exists.
And I think
yes.
everybody,
Right.
I don't care who you are, you may have pushed it back in your memory,
Right.
but
Yep.
everybody
Suppressed it.
somewhere has had an experience of something.
Of some kind, right?
Yes.
And that's their
Yeah.
story.
And
you can't take those things away from people because this is our lives. We're living in this place together, experiencing many different things, and this is why we're here. Really, this is
Well,
why
yeah.
April and I are here.
I mean, you just got to
Well-
be very open-minded.
Well, it's the fact just to loop the conversation back to ninth grade science.
Right.
Time is an agreed upon construct.
Right.
Yes.
Like we as humanity agreed to slice time into the way it is. To think that it exists that way in the afterlife, to think that it exists by our
Yeah.
definition anywhere else in the universe, is pretty haughty,
Yeah.
to say the least.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
I was in it, and you know, granted, I belong to a lot of paranormal groups
Right.
online. I
Right.
belong to a lot of communities, and some of them are pretty rough. Some of them are pretty rough on each other. Like
Yeah.
it's interesting to kind of be a fly on
Yes.
the wall sometimes
It
and
sure
see the things
is.
that happen.
Yes.
But when it comes to the woo, and when it comes to these things, there is a hard line division between
Yes.
people.
Yes.
And I find it funny. I find it strange, because for the longest time, let's just take for example, because paranormal, just the word itself,
Right.
Yes.
I think all too often anybody inside of any investigation is trying to prove it is this.
Right.
When
With
in all
their
actuality-
limited knowledge of what this is. There you go. And so that's what I was saying earlier. What's your experience? That's why I always say
Yeah.
I can't talk about anything except my own personal experiences because I don't know what you experienced.
Well, and also the fact of you're now going to filter my experience through the filter of your experience.
I've got a cough, excuse me.
No worries. But we do have to be careful of that. And whenever we are, quote, investigating something, we have to be very, very careful of that. We have to make
Yes.
sure that our personal biases do not step
Yes, exactly.
in. And that is a hard point of exclusion to the fact of, even in that same panel, I brought up the fact of if you are getting ready to go out in the woods on a dogman hunt,
Right. Ooh, there you go. That's her favorite subject.
if you are getting ready to go out to a haunted location, try to keep your mind blank. Don't
Right.
think about the location as being haunted. Just think that you're going to investigate an
Yeah,
anomalous
stay
place.
open. Yeah.
Stay open with it. The more you put it in a box, the more you are putting it in a box in your brain to begin with, scientifically.
Right.
And now, if it doesn't fit in that box or in that parameter, are you going to consider it?
Right.
You know.
Yeah, good point.
That's,
Very good.
yeah, and set your intention. I see a lot of people that
too.
before they,
Yeah.
you know, before they, you know, think that they might have a chance at seeing a Bigfoot or whatever, that they will meditate and set their intention,
Yeah.
you know, and just put out love and peace.
Sure. Sure. And,
Yeah.
you know, because once again, like we were saying in the pre-show, before we joined the audience, the
That was a
fact
great
is,
show.
you may very well be putting your intention upon that place.
Right,
Like,
exactly. Manipulating.
the whole project Stargate and remote viewing program started because of a paper written by Hal Puthoff saying that scientists were affecting the outcomes of their experiments by thinking of their experiments when they went home.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the idea that we can manipulate something
Creating
by
that
a
energy.
distance
Right.
with
Yes.
our own energy.
Right.
Yes.
Energy
You know?
is a powerful thing.
It's pretty remarkable. And once again, it goes right back to the fact of we're atomic. Even the
Yes.
desk I'm pounding on right now is
It's
is
actually
really just electromagnetic repulsion
Right.
it's just
of,
space.
of electrons.
Yeah.
That's what I'm feeling.
Uh-huh.
You know, so
Our senses give us the perception of it being solid,
Right.
yes,
Right.
but
Well,
on a
well, and they-
subatomic level, it's just space.
it is not. It is
Right.
not. And it's much like that physics equation where if I drop the rock, does it ever actually touch the ground?
Yeah.
I can divide that distance into infinity.
Oh boy, the physics make you
So
crazy.
it never actually touches the ground. By all rules of quantum physics, it never touches the ground.
I love the double slit experiment.
So, you know, it's interesting to see science actually coming about to things that paranormal investigation has been talking about for years and years.
Oh
Right.
yeah.
You know, the fact that quantum entanglement, basically what we were just talking about,
Oh,
won the
yes.
Nobel Peace
Yes.
Prize.
Yes.
The idea that two
absolutely.
particles, despite distance, can influence each other.
Yes, because
Right.
we're all one.
Right.
We're all one.
Connected.
Yeah.
And yet disconnected. It's very interesting.
So
Absolutely. And that sets up for influence, and that sets up for the fact of we can be influenced. We can be changed by fields that we're around. One of the big hypotheses I have, especially with connection with UFO UAP experiencers in the paranormal, because it seems like UFO UAP experiencers, specifically those that have been abducted, those that have had close quarters contact with craft, seem to be a magnet
Right.
for
That
such
is true.
anomaly. And
It's been true in my life.
I use the exact example of a magnet and a watch. If you take an analog watch and put it in, it doesn't have to touch the magnet, just has to be in proximity.
yes.
And eventually that watch will work differently. It'll lose time, all kinds of things, because you've partially magnetized the gears, so they
Right.
don't work the same way that they
Right.
used to. They've now
Right.
entered a different phase of vibration
yes.
and are partially magnetized. And the same way with somebody, if I used to be a broadcast technician, we were told very specifically, see that gate over there that says do not enter with the radar dish? Don't go in there, man.
Yeah. Right.
Don't go in there.
Yeah.
Like it will affect you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And many
You know?
people that have had experiences with crafts
Yeah.
have been affected through the radiation, and it's
Exactly.
very serious.
Well, yeah, and that's just it. When you're talking about anything that would be using any kind of cloaking technology, that
Right.
would be using any kind of anti-field technology for hovering, that kind of stuff, you are talking high order RF vibrations,
Right.
High order radio frequencies, things like that. So yeah, you would have an affect on your actual body.
You know,
Yes.
people don't even
no doubt
really
about it.
consider that. You know, they don't understand the frequencies and the power that
Yeah.
they have.
Yeah.
And that it is very dangerous. So,
Yeah.
you know, it is a good thing to be aware, you know, educate yourself, be
Well,
aware
and
of
you
these
want to
things.
vibrate. You want to raise your vibration. That is where we're at with our planet. We have got to raise the vibration of this planet as a collective.
No, absolutely.
To ever
absolutely.
get to peace and harmony or heaven
Yeah.
on earth.
Yeah, I don't know that it's going to happen. It
Well,
could,
and
it may not.
it's
I'm
really
hopeful.
interesting when you start looking at it. We are just burgeoning on a lot of this now. Granted, my God, the name just left my head.
Oh, don't
the
you
name
hate
of
that?
the Monroe Institute.
Oh, Monroe. Okay.
The Monroe Institute and their specified binaural beat process began. Their work began in the mid '60s, things like that.
Right.
And a lot of their concept is the idea that our brain is a frequency machine.
And it
Our
is.
brain operates off patterns and frequencies, pattern recognition, frequency. And oddly enough, those two things are even connected, because when you start getting into certain high order frequencies, you will start getting cymatic results where you actually get a pattern.
Yes.
Things like that.
Like sigils.
Yeah.
I've got the sigils for all these different things.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. I actively incorporate, I have like solfeggio generators, things like that, and I actively use the images of the frequencies that I use in my music and my artwork.
I mean, I'm a nerd. I can be a total nerd because this stuff is so fascinating.
I don't think it's nerdish.
how it can change everything.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And
I think it's interesting.
Our brains themselves work on numerous frequency levels: alpha, beta, gamma, theta, delta. And they all do different things for us, whether it's helping you with deep sleep, REM sleep. There are frequencies. One of the prime ones is up around 8 hertz.
Right.
The Schumann resonance.
Yes,
which
absolutely.
the prime example,
which affects everybody,
It is well below human hearing is between 20 hertz to 20,000 hertz.
Right.
So that is below the range of human hearing, but within the range that you can feel it.
Yes. Right.
That is the range of a cat's purr that you can feel and not hear, where you feel it like vibrating on you, like boom, 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 boom.
Just have that today.
But yeah, it is 8 pulses per second. That hertz rate is a per second pulse. So when you start doing math, it's one of those, even our whole world around us right now, the part of the reason why we're just worn out as a society and not connected to the world the way that our grandparents were,
right,
things like that, is because we have a whole realm of technology that takes advantage of our brainwaves.
Yes.
It began with film, with
microwaves,
the fact of
and when TVs came in the home.
Our brain and our eyes specifically see at 30 frames per second.
Right.
So being able to insert a subliminal frame into a film, we ended up having subliminal laws because of that.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because it was starting to be done regularly.
Yes.
Very frequently. And sometimes we can even catch it.
Oh, yeah.
I would catch it every now and then.
Yeah. And a prime example of that is the popular 90s movie. Oh, man, it just left my head.
Oh, don't you hate that?
Yeah. Fight Club.
Oh, Fight Club. Okay.
There's a part where he
Brad Pitt.
during his night job as a theater projectionist is splicing in pieces of adult film into children's movies.
Oh, yeah.
To mess with people. But at the same token, if you keep watching throughout the movie, you'll see a flash frame of Tyler Durden.
Yes.
You'll see a one frame image of him pop up in the background and stuff. So it's like they've cued your mind into the fact of look out for subliminal images because they're in the movie.
And at the movies, they would always put all these subliminal things in for the popcorn and the drinks and the candy, and people would just get up, and all of a sudden, for what appeared to be no reason,
and it carries right. Raise your hand if you know somebody that falls asleep really easily while they're watching a movie.
Yeah.
All right. That's because it is putting your brain into a hypnotic state.
Yes, it is.
It is flashing at the same rate.
That's right.
that your eyes see at.
That's right.
So eventually your eyes get tired.
That's
And
right.
that happens at a different rate for everybody.
I never fall asleep in a movie, but
Now, granted, you take that math and you double it. Now you're talking about the same rate as an incandescent light bulb.
right.
That's
Yeah.
60 hertz. That's the hum that you hear from
All the
like
time,
fluorescent
yeah.
light tubes.
Yeah.
Things like that. That's twice the rate. That's also
Yes.
HD television,
Yeah.
1080p, 60 frames per second.
Right.
So that means that you can now get into that hypnotic state twice as fast.
Yeah.
Isn't it interesting? It's just
And
crazy
now we're talking
how it
about
works, you know?
about 4K, which is at a pixel resolution that your eyes can't even see at.
Yeah.
However, the frame rate is at 120 hertz. So it's 4 times faster that you get into that hypnotic state.
Wow.
So
Yeah.
when you start doing that cumulative math of HD television and how fast you fall into a state of self-hypnosis,
Yeah.
like literally,
Catatonic.
and into a state of, you know,
Is this
like
why all the men fall asleep in their
co-
recliners?
commercial what? You know, like, yeah, quite literally. It's also, it's pretty wild. It's pretty wild. It sets
Yeah.
forth for a lot of things.
That's right.
You know, it sets forth for, well, eye damage, all kinds of stuff, especially with young kids.
Yeah.
Like if I've got a young kid and he loves his tablet, he loves his Minecraft.
Isn't
but
that
you gotta
the
watch
truth?
it.
Yeah.
You gotta watch it though, because
Yeah. It's too stimulating.
that's a device
Yes.
that they're holding 6 inches away from their face while they're
Yeah.
playing.
Yes.
Yeah.
You know, with that kind of flash rate going on.
And
Yeah.
what
That's
they're
not
teaching.
healthy for prolonged periods.
No,
No.
and what they're teaching the children is that they've got to be stimulated that frequently, and that's not life. Life is
No.
not like that, you know.
Well, and
so it's
yeah.
it's interesting.
They
Yeah,
need to
yeah.
take their shoes off and run across the yard
Yeah,
barefooted.
yeah.
Well,
Ground
and
themselves.
that's just it. Our grandparents were connected to the world in a totally different way.
That's
Yeah.
so
Totally
true.
different way. I'm burgeoning on 50, and even to know that, like, when I grew up, I didn't have the internet. I had to go to a library and pray to God that they
We had to use
what I
the Dewey
wanted in
Decimal
stock.
System.
And if they didn't have it in stock, maybe the downtown library did, or an adjoining
Yeah,
town.
exactly.
You know,
Yeah.
and they could have it sent to my library,
Right.
and
Yeah.
I could learn about
Right.
it.
You had to go
Things
dig.
were obfuscated, and we are in a state once again of a roiling pot, not a boiling pot.
Right. Very true, though. Very true.
Our brains are made to process things in a very specific way, and to recognize patterns, to want
Yes.
patterns.
And you know, I have to say that people that are older, like myself, you know, because we were in that phase of our lives and living and teaching and learning, and then we come into the AI, you know, existence. We have so much more information than what even the you know children today do,
It's so immediate.
because we've done the hard work. You know,
Yeah.
we had to take all our tests
Well,
from the noodle, not the computer.
well, and it's also we were taught to process and filter information in
Yeah.
a different way.
Exactly.
You know, and our brains are filters. They're
Right.
sieves, but the thing is, they filter.
They're a computer too.
Oh, absolutely. But they filter and compute through the filter in which we've lived.
That's right.
Works.
Experiences,
Yeah.
understanding.
You know?
Yeah.
And it's the fact of there. Once again, there didn't used to be the mass quantity of information coming at you. You didn't wake up with what was happening in Poughkeepsie in your face.
Exactly, and you
Yes.
didn't care either.
Maybe you had an aunt in Poughkeepsie, and once a couple months you'd talk, and she'd be like, "Oh my God, guess what happened last month?"
Yeah, and that was actually
You know?
interesting. Now there's nothing that somebody
Yeah.
can't tell you. We know what's going on in Israel.
Yeah, immediately.
Immediate.
Forget Poughkeepsie.
You know?
Yes.
Well, and not even that. It's also the fact of never forget that beautiful social media platform, Facebook, was funded originally by InQtel.
Right.
They got their first original round of funding from InQtel, the financial arm of DARPA and the CIA.
They're watching us. Yeah, they want to know what we know.
The one thing I remind people about the Arab Spring that happened in the 2000s, where suddenly somebody on Facebook was like, "Hey, everybody else tired of Hosni Mubarak? Let's go overthrow the government." Like, they never found that guy's profile.
Yeah.
Like, Facebook helped take down a government.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's where we're at as a point of connection in humanity.
Yeah.
It's
And
the
we did
truth.
not used to have that immediate connection.
It's
Right.
true. Yeah.
It's very
You know?
interesting, isn't it? These are very powerful times to be alive and living. It's like never before.
Well,
Yes.
and the thing is, to bring it back to the paranormal,
Yes.
we have lost, I think, an idea and identity of the word paranormal to begin with.
Right.
We have gotten caught up in what it is instead of what it's not. To examine something to the point of it just being an anomaly
Right.
should be exciting. It should be exciting because we don't have to prove it is a ghost or that it's an image of a ghost. What we
Right.
have to do is disprove that it's a lens flare,
Right.
that it's a piece of dust
what
in
it
the air.
isn't. Right.
And once you can disprove all of that, you've left anomaly,
Right.
which is pretty remarkable.
Something
You don't have-
enigmatic has happened.
There's
You
something.
don't have to prove that it's a ghost
Right.
because now you've got to prove the other side
Yeah.
to begin with.
Right.
You know, it's kind of like the whole quandary of I saw Bigfoot come out of a portal.
Right.
Okay, which part of the investigation do you start from?
Right.
The portal or the Bigfoot?
Right.
Yes.
Because there's two sides of the investigation there.
Yes.
And you
right.
have to prove either the Bigfoot or the portal to prove the other.
Yes.
Right.
You know?
So-
when if you can just prove an anomaly happened, and get past the point of hard inside the box. The same thing has happened for years with UFO UAP study. Scientists wouldn't look at it because it didn't fit inside of their box of science.
Right.
This is our box of science, and unless it obeys these rules of science, it's not science. And finally, NASA has come out and said, pretty sure that's not science.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pretty sure our job is to hypothesize to the craziest extent,
Yeah.
experiment, and prove through experimentation the hypothesis. So let's get back to the real science of exploration.
Yes.
Right.
The fun.
You know?
Yeah.
What were you going to
Because
say?
that's what it is. That's what it is. And unfortunately, even going into investigations, people get way too caught up in what is and what's there, as opposed to going with an open mind and just gathering things and examining it openly. Even the idea of examining things on site. Like I was never part of a paranormal group that examined evidence the night of.
Oh,
Ever.
right. Yeah, usually you go through all that later.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Even whenever I recorded bands for a living and did live audio engineering, whenever I handed them the CD or DVD of their set, it was don't watch this tonight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, save this for practice on Tuesday night. Give
Yeah.
yourself 3 or 4 days.
Yeah.
You know? Otherwise, if you go home tonight, you're going to pick your performance apart instead of looking at it
Yeah.
Exactly.
from an open point of view.
Right.
Yeah.
You know? And I could always tell the good bands because they watch their stuff like football footage, and after 3 or 4 DVDs, the bassist would be like, yeah, they're right. I don't need a microphone, man. You know, like, yeah, I have 3 beers and I just want to keep talking instead of playing. Like, I don't need a mic on stage anymore, you know?
Yeah,
But
right.
it's the same thing in the paranormal world. So many times people are misguided by the sensationalism of television.
Oh, it's horrible. Yeah.
That every investigation yields something.
Right.
As much as I hate to tell you folks, that is called produced television.
That's
Yeah.
right.
That
A
is
lot
called
of that
produced
is not
television.
real.
Yeah, it's just all hype.
Yeah.
Go ask anybody involved with it. You gotta make it seem like something is happening. Did you hear
Right.
that?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And there was nothing.
You know, all kinds of things. And even the idea of, oh, well, let's look at that. Like, that would never actually happen in a scientific circumstance. And if it is
Right.
happening, it's no longer science.
Right.
Because you are examining the information and the data while you are in an excited state.
Exactly.
You
Yeah.
know, which changes the filter through which you are looking at it.
Yeah.
It really does. When we all go out, we have just conversations. We're just walking. We're just talking.
Yeah.
We're not hyping anything. We're not trying to make something. And all of a sudden, some crazy thing, like the night we were all at a cemetery.
This one kept wanting to call in a dog man. And I said, no, you don't.
Well, we found teeth. We found part of a jaw. I mean, that was unearthed.
Wow.
I mean, just crazy things. You know, you don't
Yeah.
don't have to hype things. What's going to happen is going to happen, and just let it be and flow with it. You know, because we had a great time.
That was pretty freaky when you're in a cemetery and there's a set of teeth. A real
jawbone.
person's teeth.
Unearths. Yeah. It's
On the ground.
pretty wild.
Wow.
Like real teeth.
It was real teeth.
It was real teeth.
Real
You know,
jawbone.
and even the idea of, once again, what the concept of charging an atmosphere, you know, the idea of preparing yourself for an investigation and trying to keep yourself as dispassionate
Right.
as possible as you do that.
Whatever it's going to be is
know,
going to be. Yeah.
People always think of scientists as mechanical and things like that. That's why. That's why. They can't get emotionally involved with their experiment.
And that makes sense.
It's an
It does.
experiment.
Yeah.
It is.
A proper experiment you are removed from,
Right.
you know?
Yeah, I think we're doing a great job of that, not overemphasizing the moment and letting the moment be what it's going to be.
Yeah.
And then looking at it from that, you know, once you find something, like when I saw with Kevin the Bigfoot, we were not looking for Bigfoot. We were
What was
out.
that like for you?
Oh my goodness.
I'm sure you've told the story on the show before, but
it
tell
was-
me, I'm interviewing you now, Terry.
Well, it was so powerful because we were actually going to look at cows that had come into the sinkhole pond. And I heard the bell of the cow, and these cows were massive, huge, and I wanted to see them. And so we went out there and we were looking to the right at the cows at the pond, and something caught my left eye. It was dark and it moved. And I looked over while Kevin was still looking at the pond, and our little chihuahua was there. And the cows were all coming now for their drink. And I looked over and I could hardly believe my own eyes. There was a massively huge, pure black image of a Bigfoot, and the head was sitting on these huge shoulders, and I'm saying it had to be between 10 and 12 feet big, high, but massive in its width. And
Wow.
before I could even scream, I'm looking at Kevin now like, you know, and I'm bringing my hand up and screaming, oh my God. And as I'm looking, he's looking, this thing takes two massive, huge steps back into the thick of all the trees, and there were these,
Wow.
I don't know what you call those palm fronds, what the true word for them is, but it's very thick in the green swamp, and our house butted up to the green swamp. And so it took these massive steps back. I picked up the dog and ran for my life, screaming at Kevin, get out of there. And I went into the lanai by our pool, and I was so frightened. I really had no idea if this thing would come at us, come back, you know, what it was. And Kevin was trying to see it, so he kept staying behind, which scared me terribly. I'm like, get out of there. You know,
Yeah, Kevin's my style.
Yes.
This is
I know. And, you know, but he was so big and so very
Wow.
much there
Wow.
that there was no way I was standing there. And, you know, I say this when I share it. If you saw a grizzly standing that close to you, there's no way you're not running. It's huge. It's massive.
Yeah.
And it was just really big. And it wasn't that I wanted to run so far away that I couldn't come back and look. I wanted safety. Like when we were out the other night, and I'll let you tell that story because it's hysterical.
This one was wanting to call in a dog man, and I was like, Terry, stop. We do not want to do that. So later on, we're over in LBL, and we're down the trace, and we pull over, and we're out of the vehicle, and we're looking up at the sky, and I mean,
The stars were
you could see the Milky Way.
unbelievable.
It was beautiful.
Oh, stunning.
And then all of a sudden, it was like thousands of coyotes. Just, I mean, it's like they're 4 feet in front of us. And Terry's like,
Screaming.
get in the car! They're coming after us! And Kevin and I are like, no.
She's telling all my secrets.
We're like, nope, we're going to stay right here.
April, don't give me away. She's throwing me under the bus.
I'm like, it's coyotes. I said, they won't attack us. But
And she's got her big, high, super powered light, and she can see the eye shine. They're not that far off. And I was
Wow.
just like, get in the car, here they come. But that's the same thing that
she
happened
called
with
them
Bigfoot.
in.
Yeah, I really did. It
Yeah.
was dead quiet, and then all of a sudden,
And then
after
she
just
started doing it again.
you know, I think you put your intentions out there, and whatever is out there feels your pull, and all of a sudden just hundreds of coyotes were
Yeah.
going ballistic out there, and it really was overwhelming because you could hear a pin drop out there
And
when
then
you're
they
in the
hushed.
LBL. The LBL is what
Man.
we have here called land between
Land
the
beyond-
lakes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it's really beautiful.
And then they just stopped.
they just stopped. Yeah,
But now I
Man.
was catching eye shine, 2 eyes,
yeah.
and it was probably from where we were standing, I would say probably 5 feet off the ground.
Yeah. Now,
Just these
how?
2 eyes.
Yeah.
I would see them, and then I wouldn't see them.
Uh-huh.
We kept taking my flashlight back and forth, and the coyotes had all stopped.
Wild.
It's
So
like
Kevin
they took
does
off.
a Bigfoot call, and they crank back up.
Yep.
Yeah.
And oh my gosh.
But to see eye shine that high up in the trees,
Yeah.
go figure. What was that?
Yeah.
You know, I don't think the coyotes climb trees. So we were kind of bewildered there for a
we
moment.
were
going,
in a
"What's
hot
going
spot
on here?"
that we knew
Yeah.
there was activity.
Well, and you know, that just brings right back to the fact of I ask guests all the time on my show if they would like to repeat their experience.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
You know, because and typically it's the fact of most of the books I have from guests on my wall, which is a couple bookshelves full.
Yeah.
They normally don't start off like a song. They start off like a Disney movie.
Right.
Like
yeah,
something
right.
really tragic happens in the first 10 minutes to the main character. You know, something really uncomfortable that is going to change the course of everything.
Yeah.
And the real question is, do you really want that? Like, there are a lot of people out there right now that are like, I would love to see a UFO. I would
Or a
love to
Bigfoot.
have a bit. I would love to have a Bigfoot experience.
Uh-huh.
You know, I'd love to see a chupacabra. It's like,
Sure.
you think so?
Yeah.
Because I don't know from all these books.
Yeah,
It's
especially
frightening.
From all these
They're
these
frightening.
guest books and
Yeah.
stuff
Yeah.
back here. I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't
especially
know.
the dog
Like, I'm
man.
open to it.
Yeah.
I think
I'm
the
open
dog
to it.
man
Don't-
is probably.
But I don't know if I'm going to go seeking it.
Well,
You know.
that's
can't
who
unsee
I
it.
am. I'm going to go seeking it. I want to understand what's here with me on the
Oh,
planet. I want to
absolutely.
know what's happening for
We
real.
just can't help it. We're just
You know.
squatching.
Curious.
Well, yeah, like prime example, I will gladly go out on an expedition. I will gladly go out on an investigation.
Me too in a minute.
Well, when you're
Well,
here
I-
for Enigmacon, we just might drag you out.
Oh,
Yes.
that'd be great. That'd be great. But the thing is, I don't know that I would necessarily go to like use a Ouija board with 10 people.
Well, now that I
No.
would not do.
That
You
might be a
know,
little
Yeah.
different.
because once again, we are putting a very specific intent out.
Yeah.
Exactly.
You know,
Yes.
And I don't know.
There
I
are
don't know.
things I know and there are things I don't know. What I do know is I'm not calling in the spirit realm. You know,
Yeah.
they are here, they're frightening, they're powerful. And if you're not really in tune with God and a higher power and a much more brilliant mindset than
Yeah.
the lower realms, you're asking for some trouble.
Yeah.
So, yeah, there are things I will and won't do.
I've got a
Dogman,
copy of the Roman
yeah.
ritual right here. Like that is the rite of exorcism.
Yes.
Oh,
Latin
my
on one
goodness.
side, English on the left.
Yes, yes.
English on the right.
Oh,
I
I'd
don't
love a
think I'm
copy
gonna
of
go
that.
out practicing exorcisms.
I do actually.
You know, like, yeah.
But that's
yeah,
another
there's
story.
just something like I will read, I will investigate, I will absolutely do a lot of things, but that's just one that I don't know.
I
don't
know.
if that's,
Well, you're going to have to
you know,
share that book with me. Bring
So
it
it's-
with you when you come.
It's a good one. It's a good one.
Well, we're
I was
at the
given that
top
by a
of
very
our
good-
hour, Chris. Oh my goodness, I'm so sad because this is so
That's all
much
right.
fun.
Well, we have numerous other times we can have more
I know.
conversations
Oh, yeah.
about all kinds of stuff, ladies. It was
Yes.
more than fun.
Yes.
Did you hear where to ask? Do you have any final
Yeah.
thoughts?
Any final thoughts?
Uh-huh.
You know, for me, it's the fact of open hearts and open minds win
Yeah.
the day, man. We have lived in years. Experiencers have lived in years. Sometimes with shame, sometimes with fear of their experiences, and like even right now, I am in the midst of. I released an album about a year or so ago that was for targeted individuals. I'm specifically working right now on an album of therapy music for experiencers
Oh, how nice.
to help ease their mind. Because it can be hard. If you are an experiencer out there, just know that you are not alone.
That's
You are
right.
not alone. Out of every handful of people, one person has had an experience at least.
Oh, sure.
So know that you are not alone out there. Know that there are folks like us, folks like the Paris Paranormal Show, as well as Curious Realm, that are out there ready to share and listen to your story.
Right.
You know, because it's through that we grow and that we become better human beings. Period.
Yes.
Yes, and speaking about Curious Realm, Chris, how can our listeners get in touch with you if they're interested?
CuriousRealm.com is the
All right.
website. You can tune in live there every Tuesday night. You can tune in live on our YouTube, on our Facebook group, or on our Facebook page rather. All kinds of things. We also have an experiencer form. We have an experiencer hotline where you can leave messages, and we will bring your experiences up with our professionals and with our investigators that we have on the show to see if we can get you some answers, or at least, you know, a little bit of solace in talking about it in relation to other people's experiences.
Awesome.
Right.
That's great. And thank you so much for being
Yes.
on today with
Oh,
us.
anytime. It was
This
a
has
pleasure.
been so much
Thank
fun,
you.
so informative.
Thank you so much.
Yes.
And
April, it was a pleasure meeting you.
Yeah.
it was a pleasure meeting you. We got to talk again. I've already downloaded one of your albums.
Awesome.
And he'll be here for Enigmacon. So
Awesome.
that's going to be great.
Awesome.
Yay.
Yay. I can't
That'll
wait.
be March
Epic.
8th through the 10th
Yes.
in 2024.
Yes.
So that'll be a
Awesome.
great weekend, and we'll see you then. So
Oh,
thank you
most
so
definitely.
much.
Thank you.
All righty.
Hey,
Hey.
and if you've got a story to tell, we want to hear from you. Reach out to us and let us know who you want us to bring on the show next. If you've had any kind of experiences, you can email us at hauntedparis@usa.com. We're also on Facebook at Paris Paranormal, and you can also find us on YouTube on Enigmatic Anomalies channel.
That's right. Yeah. So it's youtube.com at Enigmatic Anomalies. So look us up and hit the like and subscribe. And thanks so much for being with April and I tonight. Have a great night. We'll see you next week for another great show. Paris Paranormal.
Paris Paranormal.
Bye now.